If you start off from here, down this tunnel, and you walk for 6 or 7 hours, you find yourself back in the same place, arriving there. You cross the Franco-Swiss border 4 times. The tunnel's between 50 and 150 meters underground. It passes under the Jura mountain range, goes close by the Geneva airport, then comes back. 27 kilometers filled with magnets that bend the trajectory of the particles and keep the beam concentrated. The beam arrives, leaves the tunnel here, crosses this hall, and enters the other side to continue its course. But in the middle of this space, there's a collision of matter and antimatter. And the whole of this cavern will be filled with a detector. It's enormous, and it's in there that the results will be monitored. In this detector, there'll be enough metal to rebuild the Eiffel Tower. The CERN is for pure research. I mean, it has no practical applications. It's purely for the advancement of human knowledge. But if we want to do something intrinsically European, then we need to be pretty close to the geometrical center of the continent. We need a good airport. We need some kind of cultural background so that the physicists don't feel bored out of their minds in a kind of a desert. We need to be able to speak a universal language together. So there were important reasons to build here in Geneva. And scientific research is neutral. One more reason why Switzerland seemed the obvious place.
Amorcé. En joue. Feu!
Is there an accent on Geneva? How do you write Geneva? And where is Geneva? What's here? Do you know why I'm here? That's right. I'm making a film about Geneva. And I'd like you to do a drawing or a painting of Geneva.
Et celui qui fera le plus beau dessin, qui représentera le mieux Genève, eh bien le dessin sera dans le film. Ça sera comme l'affiche du film.
When you go up or down into the old town, along the main street, La Grande Rue. You're walking along an old Celtic road, the same one that Genevans have trodden for 2,500 years.
In spite of what you might have thought, Geneva was never an important city of the Roman Empire. It was much later during the Dark Ages that this town became a center of enlightenment. A regional capital, she became a center of Christianity, one of the oldest northern European centers, with quite extraordinary buildings, 3 huge cathedrals that formed a kind of acropolis on top of this hill where we are now.
When one knows how many great men were born or lived in Geneva, one has the feeling of belonging to a community whose destiny is the diffusion of thought and spiritual values. One of Geneva's most famous sons, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, played a leading part in the birth of our modern world. He was the prophet of the human rights movement. His father once said to him, "Jean-Jacques, love thy country." He loved it, and he made it known. At the time of the Reformation, Geneva reflected the stamp of John Calvin's personality. He turned the city into a kind of Protestant Vatican, creating the college and the academy, and opened them to culture and science. Today, these seats of learning remain the points of contact between tradition and progress. 1530. The Genevans decide to demolish the suburbs and use the material to erect ramparts around the city. The open city becomes a fortress behind its battlements. It's the price she must pay to ensure her independence. However, these ramparts saved the city in 1602, when the Duke of Savoy, ancestor of the Italian royal house, tried for the last time to seize the city-state of Geneva by surprise. The battle lasted 3 hours. The Genevans realized that that night had been the decisive one for them, just as the Athenians had known that their victory in the Battle of Marathon had decided their destiny. Each year, they commemorate this escalade, the attempted scaling of the city walls, and they honor the 17 Genevans who gave their lives to ensure the freedom of their city, to safeguard their faith, their liberty, and their glorious fame. June 1814. The Swiss disembark at the Port Noir. At last, Geneva feels free to sail her independent ship of state, so often threatened by the storms of history, into the safe haven of a free Switzerland. Henceforth, Geneva is part of Switzerland. She becomes the 22nd canton of the Confederation. Geneva is a state which has its own government and parliament. And what is remarkable, is the will of this tiny community to preserve its independence and freedom of expression, which has been fundamental to all Genevans for 600 years. Several times each year, the citizens are called upon to vote, not just to elect their representatives, but also to approve or reject measures and initiatives that would have a direct bearing on their lives. .280 square kilometers, 360,000 inhabitants, encircled by France and joined to the rest of Switzerland by a narrow corridor 4 kilometers wide. Geneva is about to overflow. To make the most of this tiny pocket canton, to preserve its arable land, its forests and countryside, the urban area has to be utilized in the most balanced way possible. The Genevan is as attached to his quality of life as he is to his economic prosperity. And keeping both is the challenge he has to accept at the end of the 20th century. "2,000 years ago, in order to hold back the Helvetic tribes, the Roman Emperor Julius Caesar ordered the destruction of the bridge over the Rhone. So Geneva marked its place in history. 20 centuries later, this new bridge will link Geneva to all the major European motorways.
Je m'appelle Zino Davidoff.
My name is Zino Davidoff. My whole life has been bound up with cigars. I'm very pleased that it has. My father arrived in Geneva, then ran out of money to continue his journey. So he said to himself, why go any further when it's such a charming place here? So here we stayed.
Cointrin, Geneva's airport, the start of an adventure. But what do tourists look for in Geneva? The hotels are more than just a tradition, not so much a business, more a way of life. The Swiss love to entertain, and Geneva offers an exceptional range of hotels, from numerous 2 stars to no less than 16 5-star hotels that all offer the height of comfort in desirable surroundings. Looking up from her plate and out at the lakeside, the gourmet will satisfy 2 appetites, that of the taste for beautiful surroundings and that of the palate.
Si possible, un vin genevois? Oui, c'est une très bonne idée. Nous avons des très beaux vins locaux. Je vous les recommande. J'aimerais vous suggérer un chardonnay. C'est un vin de la maison Vin Union qui est vraiment superbe. C'est un vin très agréable. S'il vous plaît, monsieur, le chardonnay. Parfait.
Incidentally, did you know that in Satigny, Geneva boasts the largest wine-growing commune in Switzerland, and that the Genevan is also an excellent wine grower?
Voilà.
She's calm, she's discreet, and she's safe. That's why Geneva is the natural choice for numerous international economic and political meetings, the whole year round.
While some of the countries have taken concrete steps to support our efforts by getting protection.
But there are other reasons why Geneva is preferred to other meeting places. She has other charms. One of the things that sets Geneva apart from other centers of culture is her musicians. The founder of the Swiss Romande Orchestra, Ernest Enzemat, Frank Martin, Pierre Fournier, Dino Lipati, Arthur Rubinstein, Franz Liszt, and Émile Jacques Delacroix. One of Geneva's favorite sons was the actor Michel Simon. The famous director Jean Renoir said of him, he seems to be both the theater and the cinema personified. His son, François Simon, is also an actor. His films include Alain Tanner's Charles, Dead or Alive, and the title role in Claude Goretta's Jean-Jacques Rousseau. He breathed life into the Carouge Theater and into the many parts he played there. Today, the variety of performance offered by the Comedy Theater and many fringe theaters is quite astonishing in its creativity. In the Watch and Clock Museum, you'll find examples of 17th century craftsmanship that will take your breath away. And when you wander back in time through the Museum of Art and History, you'll find a rainbow of Genevan landscapes, painted by Conrad Wietz, Jean-Étienne Léotard, Pierre-Louis de la Rive, Jean-Baptiste Corot, François Didet, Alexandre Calam, Henri Lacombe, and Ferdinand Hodler, up to the point where the picture becomes reality. Your diary and mine will tell us when spring has arrived. But Genevans have their own ways of doing things. They've always been the experts in recording measurements of temperature, hours of sunshine, rainfall, and so on, all very scientific. But at the beginning of the 19th century, it was decided that a particularly well-exposed chestnut tree would be closely observed, very closely. And when the first leaf appears, this marks Geneva's first day of spring.
Tu me donnes ta position et le vent, s'il te plaît.
And today, meteorology still relies on observation. It is largely thanks to the assistance of the meteorological station at Geneva Airport and his own instinctive sensing of wind changes that Pierre Fellman won the round-the-world sailing race. This instinct that one develops by sailing on Lake Geneva, living with its winds and enhancing a sixth sense about when they will change. And this theatrical backdrop of mountains that limit yet open up the horizon. It's natural enough that Genevans have very special feelings about sailing and mountain climbing. Horace Benedict de Saussure made one of the first ascents of Mont Blanc. His reasons were scientific. That was in 1787. This love of nature and the natural sciences is handed down from one generation of Genevans to the next.
Geneva
has a very special vocation for the study of nature. There was Rousseau, all kinds of naturalists like Charles Bonnet, de Saussure. I think that love of nature is something peculiar to the city dweller. Geneva, this little city locked away inside its walls, probably had, more than many others, the need for nature as a form of compensation.
C'est un lièvre, ça. C'est un lièvre au gîte.
That's a hare, that is.
Tapis dans son creux.
He's crouching in his hole.
Un masque, il est d'or.
This is a mask. It's made of gold.
Fait pour des carnavals.
It's adorned with beetles, and I made it for carnival.
C'est les plus beaux scarabées au
This is
monde.
a Coptrolobus. They're the most beautiful scarab beetles in the world. They come from China.
Art sometimes becomes industry. The Chamber of Commerce and Industry represents the employers of some 220,000 people, more than half the population of the canton. This is the highest level of employment in Europe, a sign of a prosperous and varied economy ranging from commerce through industry and agriculture to high finance. The retail market in this tiny provincial jewel can offer you anything you'll find in Paris, London, or Rome. just like yesteryear, the watchmakers have retained their love of precision. Nothing has changed. Thanks to these craftsmen, the fame of Geneva has spread worldwide. Switzerland is known the world over for its quality, seriousness, and neutrality. The role of a mediator. For this reason, the Société Générale de Surveillance is particularly well placed with its head office in Geneva. From all over the world, governments and private companies make use of their quality control services. The independent nature of the organization makes international trade that much easier.
I could have settled in New York, but decided instead to set up my firm in Geneva because of its political and economic stability, its liberal system, its remarkable telecommunications and transport facilities, and the exceptional geographical position of this city. Not to mention the 16,000 financial professionals working in 500 banks and financial companies, or the numerous other facilities offered by Geneva's international environment.
The banking tradition is over 500 years old. One of the concessions that Bishop Adhemar Fabry granted to the city in 1387 was the right to charge interest on loans. The commercial success of the various fairs in Geneva, producing the need for increased credit and money transfers, and the increasing importance of the city in the Protestant world were the bases of an activity whose successful practitioners held the trump cards of experience and dynamism. But here, all that glitters is not necessarily gold. And melting down the bullion reaped in certain holdups might fatten the thieves themselves rather than their bank accounts. The Geneva Stock Exchange is an important part of the city. It was the first exchange to be opened in Switzerland and therefore has an in-depth history well rooted in the city.
Non, 75 la monnaie. Alors, je laisse la queue. Je prends plus la monnaie, il a 80. 8 heures, 35 à 50.
Actuellement, nous vivons un moment de dynamisme.
At the moment, we're going through a period of dynamism and of general recognition of its benefits as a service to the public. The stock exchange is the pump that supplies the means of finding the necessary capital to develop both the Genevan and the international economies.
Computer-generated electronic circuits, brainchildren of companies in the forefront of progress, perpetuate an industrial talent which has grown from very prestigious roots. This mechanical industry spawned its natural successor, the machine tool industry. Since 1952, Charmy Technologies have specialized in the field of electroerosion, or spark erosion, which allows the working of any conductor, no matter of what hardness. These digitally controlled workstations, which are in demand on all 5 continents, are especially important in the aeronautical and aerospace industries. So Geneva is also involved in the space race.
Imaginé par Dieu, follement femme, eau et flamme, tu peux me rendre heureux, inoubliable, quand tu t'éloignes, pareil comme à 20 ans. Inexorable est la loi du temps, et pourtant ton rire je l'entends. On s'est aimé, engagé, enchaîné, désiré, déchiré, comme des amants terribles et enragés. Nous avons voté la mort, mais qui peut nous briser? Unis éternellement par un pacte plus fort que le sang, inoubliable, joli en diable, créature de Dieu. Les soirs de neige, je te comprends mieux, roman des tendres Genève, quand je te rêve sur un banc d'amoureux. Joli en diable, créature de Dieu. Les soirs de neige, je te comprends mieux, romande et tendre Genève, quand je te rêve sur un banc d'amoureux.
Some people say that Geneva is an impersonal city. However, if you're lucky enough to dawdle through her squares or linger on her terraces on a fine day, you'll find a world which is warm and simple.
Et puis les gamins, ça va? Vous avez été sages à l'école? Ouais, mais faut pas dire oui, faut dire ouais. Ah, voilà, non, là c'est très Genevois comme ça, alors ouais.
Jolie petite ville.
Carouge is a lovely little town. There's only one Carouge. You know everybody. It's important. They've got everything there. There's no need to go to Geneva. Carouge is not a suburb of Geneva. It was built by people who came from Sardinia with all the Mediterranean charm that that implies.
Everywhere, the arrival of spring is a pretext for rejoicing. It's the children of Confignon who have the privilege to sing about the return of the foliage, the trees.
Celle-là?
Oui. J'ai tout celle-là qui sent.
Ah ouais?
C'est celle-là qui sent la plus.
Pardon?
Bon, elle était au soleil, puis elle est plus
Oui,
avancée.
ouais, ouais, ouais.
Pour moi, c'est très net. Colline?
Le métier de parfumeur, c'est un métier d'artiste. Pour être un
The
bon
craft
parfumeur,
of the
c'est comme
perfumier
tous les
is
artistes,
the craft
faut
of an
connaître
artist.
la technique.
To be a good perfumier, you need to know all the techniques, and when you know all the products, you still
Un
need
musicien, on lui
inspiration.
apprend la musique, mais après...
A musician can be taught the music, but then it's up to him to play in his own personal
on
way.
lui apprend
A perfumier is taught to recognize the smells of all the raw materials available, but after that, his inspiration depends on him and him alone, just like always.
Geneva's chemical industry creates these fragrant perfumes which delight people the world over. If this region is so often a seductress, it is perhaps thanks to her perfumes that carry a little touch of Geneva with them. Geneva is like an island in the center of Europe, but her airport allows her to play an important role on the international stage. Just a wingspan away from the airport and the railroad terminus is the exhibition center. The Geneva Motor Show, the City of Geneva Fair, the Book Fair, and every 4 years, Telecom, the World Telecommunications Forum. International by choice and tradition, Geneva has become even more so, thanks to the international organizations which are based here. There are 8 main international organizations in Geneva. There's the European headquarters of the United Nations. There's a whole series of more specialized agencies around the UN. There's GATT for General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade between countries. Then there's the International Telecommunications Union, which is the oldest of the specialist UN agencies. The International Labour Organization, which has its headquarters in Geneva, and then there's the High Commission for Refugees. We have the WMO, which is the World Meteorological Organization, the WHO, that's the World Health Organization, and finally, there's the Ecumenical Center, which is also in Geneva.
Se trouve aussi à Genève. Je crois que c'est à peu près tout. Oui, oui. J'ai oublié quelque chose? L'MPI, ouais. Je me disais que j'ai oublié quelque chose.
Oh, MPI, or the WIPO. That's the World Intellectual Property Organization. And that's also in Geneva. Beneath this dome, mankind protects the works of art and the inventions born of his spirit. The spirit of tolerance, the dialogue for peace, are always ready and waiting to greet you in Geneva. At the European headquarters of the United Nations, people meet, try to understand one another, and are ready to build a lasting peace together. Man's self-respect is surely there also to protect life. After the Battle of Solferino in 1859, Henri Dunant, yet another son of Geneva, created the Red Cross movement. Today, you find his flag everywhere. Everywhere that people are suffering. Jean-Jacques loved thy country.
Inoubliable, fille du diable, imaginée par Dieu, follement femme, eau et flamme, tu peux me rendre heureux, inoubliable, quand tu t'éloignes, pareil comme à 20 ans, inexorable est la loi du temps, et pourtant ton rire je l'entends. On s'est aimé, engagé, enchaîné, désiré, déchiré, comme des amants terribles et enragés. Nous avons voté la mort, mais qui peut nous briser, unis éternellement par un pacte plus fort que le sang, inoubliable, joli en diable, créature de Dieu. Les soirs de neige, je te comprends mieux, roman des tendres Genève, quand je te rêve sur un banc d'amoureux. Joli en diable, créature de Dieu. Les soirs de neige, je te comprends mieux, romande et